Fox Sports college football analyst. Bruce, welcome back to Tuscaloosa. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, Ryan. Good to be on the show.
25 days away from college football in general. Does this sort of get your pulse moving faster at this time of the year?
It does. You know, we finally got some practices, and I think that's a good thing. And, you know, we're getting closer. We just had our football offsite meetings at Fox the last 3 days, where it's a lot of planning and everything like that. And yeah, I think everybody's got a lot of stuff to be fired up about.
When you look at Alabama, what do you see in 2015 for this team?
You know, I think I have them winning the SEC. I'm not sure if they're going to be a top, two or three team, though. The questions I have, like last year going into the season, you had question at quarterback. I think what alleviated some of the issues was you had Amari Cooper, who is a go-to guy. Right now, I don't know if there is that guy that the new quarterback, whoever it's going to be, will lean on. On the bright side, I think the offensive line is going to be much better than it was last year. I think the defensive line, while it was good, I think will even be better this year because they're just so deep. Ultimately, though, it's just the consistency in the passing game is what I wonder about, and I think you could say the same about a bunch of schools in the SEC, especially in 2015.
Well, maybe it's the year that you look at scoring. Maybe it drops down a little bit as far as in the SEC. Maybe it comes down to, maybe in the 20s, the upper 20s in the SEC. Maybe it's not going to take 35, 42 points to win a game.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, who knows? I think that could be a reflection of better defenses, or it's, however you want to look at it, or it's shakier quarterback play.
I want to talk to you about Blake Barnett. Not only do you live in that state, but you have a chance to sort of dive a little bit deeper in what the making of a modern quarterback. So it was a book that you released last summer. It's become a reference book for a lot of us that follow quarterback competitions. The Quarterback, the making of modern quarterbacks, Bruce Feldman right now. I want to go back to Blake Barnett. He's mentioned in the book, and it doesn't take long to see that he's an elite-type quarterback. He's a true freshman, but he's got all the skills to be a big-time quarterback in college football.
Yeah, like you said, I did cover Blake quite a bit in the QB. He's an impressive kid. He is, very athletic. He's got a strong arm. I think his work ethic is really good. People like being around him. He had a lot of the intangibles. Physically, I think it's just a matter of time. He still looks like a younger guy. Both facially and just development-wise. I'm curious in 2 years I can see Blake Barnett being 6'4", 220 pounds, and being a guy who can almost run like a wide receiver. I'm not saying he would be a wide receiver. I just think that's one of the things he's going to bring to the table. And we'll see how quickly he can develop. When I was there in the spring, he looked like a guy who was still trying to figure it out. In reality, he was a guy who should have still been in high school. So it's no stretch to think that he would be struggling and his head would be swimming. But I think he's a bright kid, and he's got a really good future, I think, there. And I'm just curious how quickly he can get on the field. I know, Lane Kiffin's got to be encouraged by the skill set he brings.
Well, and this was only one practice, but on Sunday, the Nick Saban allows us to watch the entire practice. And out of all the quarterbacks, not saying that he's ready to step into this starting role because, as you said, going back to the spring, still trying to learn the playbook, still trying to learn, but it seems like the game has slowed down for him. He was making a lot of throws that were eye-opening. He threw a bomb on the run, moving to the right side, showing his athletic ability on the run, 40, 45-yard pass, and it's like it's one of those that after you see quarterback struggling with 15 yards pitch and catch, and then you see him throw one on the rope, it's like, yes, he's a freshman, but he may be the most talented quarterback that you have, even though he may not be ready to play against Wisconsin in 25 days.
Yeah, look, I think he's got some bright spots. I don't think they need to rush him, in his development. But I think those are the same reasons why you saw a lot of people thought he was a five-star quarterback. He definitely has a lot to work with, and I think what bodes well for him, and I saw this, like I said, we covered a lot in the QB, was just his intangibles and his work ethic, and a lot of the quarterbacks who worked with him are very big believers on him.
When you look at the quarterback traits that make up a solid quarterback, what's a couple of areas that you try to identify that they can be solid quarterbacks? Now, obviously moving away from Barnett, but just looking at quarterbacks that you can try to predict success, What do you look for now, since you've had a chance to do a lot of research on what it takes to be a big-time quarterback? What do you look for in a quarterback to sort of try to predict some success?
I think you want to see how smart a kid is, how accurate. I mean, those are big, big qualities. If a guy is accurate and he's very smart, I think then he has a chance to play in college football. You don't need to have Jamarcus Russell's arm or, even one of these guys who like a Jay Cutler. But if you can, we saw that with Kellen Moore, you can be a great college quarterback. He wasn't very big. He's got decent feet, but he's not going to win any 40-yard dash contest. But he was accurate. He anticipated well. I think anticipating well is big, and the accuracy is big. I mean, you can win a lot of games and do really well. I mean, he obviously needs some arm strength, but that's a big plus to it.
We're talking to Bruce Feldman, the author of a great book, The Quarterback, The Making of Modern Quarterbacks, also Fox Sports college football analyst. Let me ask you about a game manager. A few years ago, it worked here in Tuscaloosa. Not trying to be offensive. Howard Snellerberger once told me the game manager is a great label that you can give to quarterbacks. 2009, Greg McElroy was more of a game manager as far as quarterback. A.J. McCarron the first couple of years tried to stretch the field a little bit later in his career. But can you win with a game manager in current college football, being a handoff guy, play action guy, just managing the game, or do you need more from that quarterback?
No, I think it depends what you're around. I mean, if you have a great defense, I think you can do that if you limit the mistakes and have some firepower. And I think you look at some of the teams that have won, it wasn't because necessarily they had a guy who was Brett Favre back there. I just think it's like so much of it in college football is not making mistakes and taking the opportunities and being able to hit them when you can. And I think ultimately, that can still work in college football if you have a smart guy there who's accurate.
Saban's defense gave up 1,200 yards in the last two games, nearly 1,200 yards against Ohio State and the Missouri Tigers. Even going back to the Auburn game, gave up a lot of yards as well. Is the message still out there that Nick Saban struggles with some of these option read quarterbacks that are out there? I mean, do you think that's still fair criticism for Nick Saban?
Yeah, I think it's a criticism. I think, look, you give up the stats they have, and they have had some struggles. I think that is a fair criticism. Now we'll see. I think, if it's Kyler Murray in the middle of October, not Kyle Allen, that's going to be a challenge for them. I mean, Josh Dobbs at Tennessee had a little bit of success. Now, I don't know, it was a blowout by that time. And then you're going to see Dak Prescott is going to do it. And you're probably going to see some of it with Jeremy Johnson at Auburn. So you might even see it at LSU with Brendan Harris or whoever's going to be playing there. So I think there's still an issue. I think some of that is on the defense as a whole, but ultimately I think when somebody gets in a rhythm, because obviously Johnny Manziel was the biggest example of that, doing damage, I mean, people are going to attack it. And it's not, look, in fairness to Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, I mean, Pete Carroll's a great coach. Pete Carroll had huge issues with mobile quarterbacks. Lots of guys have it's not like there's people who have answers. I mean, Gary Patterson, as good a defensive coach as he's had some issues at times. I think it's just, some defenses respond to it better than others.
We're talking to Bruce Feldman right now inside the game here in Tuscaloosa. I want to go back to last year. Hurry up, no huddle was a part that we were going to try to control the pace of the game. There was no rule implemented, but you could tell that the officials was a heavy emphasis on slowing the game down. This year, it was the ineligible lineman downfield, the conversation that happened in the spring. There was no rule that was created, but the talk among the director of officials, like Steve Shaw at the SEC, that they're going to put an emphasis on calling the rule the way that it should be called, the 3-yard rule, ineligible lineman downfield. How big of a part of college football will that change if that rule is called correctly?
I think it's as a point of emphasis. We're going to see how it does. I mean, there's a big play, Kansas State related that people remember, and there's a couple of people who've been able to exploit it. I think it was a lot of times it was something that got some of the guys who were the Rich Rodriguez's and the Hugh Freezes that got on their radar. Noel Mazzoni at UCLA. We'll see how the referees call it and how big of a point of emphasis it is. Because it would have been a significant issue from talking to some of those coaches who went back and looked at their film and see where it fit in.